A single red light blinks in the corner of a parking garage at 3:47 a.m. The camera is old, grainy, mounted where no one thinks to look. But on this night, it's recording something that will unravel a criminal network spanning 3 continents. What happens when the people who thought they were invisible realize they've been watched all along? In late 2019, law enforcement agencies across Europe noticed something strange. High-value shipments were disappearing from secure facilities with no signs of forced entry. The thefts were clean, professional, and seemingly impossible to trace. What connected them was something investigators almost missed: outdated CCTV systems that criminals assumed were broken or unwatched.
It's done. I'm looking at the container now. Tell them the exchange happens at midnight, just as planned.
This isn't just another heist story. It's a case study in how old technology, human error, and one detective's refusal to give up exposed a sophisticated criminal operation that had been operating undetected for nearly 4 years. The story matters because it changed how international law enforcement shares surveillance data and revealed vulnerabilities that still exist in thousands of facilities today. The first theft occurred in Rotterdam in March 2016. A shipping container holding pharmaceutical supplies worth $2.3 million vanished from a bonded warehouse. Security logs showed nothing unusual. The facility manager reported the loss, but with no footage and no witnesses, the case went cold within weeks. 18 months later, a similar incident happened in Antwerp. This time, the cargo was industrial electronics. Same pattern, no forced entry, no alarm triggers, inventory simply gone. Local police filed reports but saw no connection to Rotterdam. The cases sat in different databases in different countries, never cross-referenced. By 2019, there had been 11 confirmed thefts across Belgium, the Netherlands, and Germany. The total value exceeded $18 million. Each facility had outdated CCTV systems, and in each case, criminals had accessed goods during narrow windows when staff rotations created gaps in human surveillance. The breakthrough came in November 2019 in Hamburg. Detective Inspector Klaus Hartmann was reviewing footage from a warehouse theft when he noticed something in the corner of frame 1847, a reflection. A vehicle's headlight catching a wet surface at an angle that shouldn't have been visible from that camera's position. He rewound, watched again. Then he did something most investigators hadn't. He requested footage from a camera everyone thought was broken. That second camera had been recording the entire time. Its feed wasn't connected to the main security monitor, but it was still writing to a local hard drive. The footage was grainy, time-stamped, and crystal clear in what it showed. 4 individuals in high-visibility vests, moving with the confidence of people who believed they were unseen. They weren't breaking in. They had keys. They had schedules. They knew exactly when to arrive and how long they had. Hartmann sent the footage to Europol. Within 72 hours, facial recognition and vehicle plate analysis connected the Hamburg crew to similar individuals captured on peripheral cameras in Rotterdam, Antwerp, and 3 other cities. The vests weren't disguises. They were real uniforms. Some of the thieves were contract security workers. Others were logistics coordinators. They had legitimate access and they'd been exploiting it systematically since 2016. In January 2020, coordinated raids across 5 countries resulted in 19 arrests. Investigators recovered over $4 million in stolen goods and uncovered detailed schedules showing future targets. The operation had been meticulous. Criminals had studied facility layouts, identified camera blind spots, and even mapped out which CCTV systems were monitored in real time versus which merely recorded. They assumed old cameras in dusty corners weren't being checked. They were almost right.
The case file is built on multiple layers of evidence. First, there's the CCTV footage itself, over 340 hours from 17 different facilities, most of it retrieved from cameras that weren't part of active monitoring systems. Investigators used metadata timestamps to confirm the footage hadn't been tampered with and cross-referenced it with facility access logs. Second, mobile phone geolocation data. Several suspects had their personal devices with them during thefts, and cell tower triangulation placed them at crime scenes during the exact windows when goods went missing. This data was obtained through legal warrants and corroborated by vehicle tracking from toll road cameras. Third, financial forensics. investigators traced over 3.2 million euros in transactions connected to the sale of stolen goods through encrypted messaging apps and cryptocurrency exchanges. While the defendants argued some transactions were legitimate business expenses, prosecutors demonstrated patterns that aligned precisely with theft dates. Physical evidence included uniforms, forged access credentials, and warehouse keys found during the raids. Several suspects had detailed maps and schedules on their laptops, some annotated with notes like Cam 4 not monitored and Night Shift Change 0300.
Defense attorneys argued that some of the accused were merely employees doing their jobs, and that their presence on CCTV during odd hours could be explained by shift work. 2 of the 19 arrested individuals were ultimately released after investigators couldn't establish direct involvement in the thefts. There's also debate about whether all 11 thefts were committed by the same network. While 17 defendants were convicted, prosecutors acknowledged that at least 2 incidents may have been opportunistic crimes by individuals unconnected to the main group. The evidence was circumstantially strong, but not definitive in those cases. Some security experts questioned whether the CCTV footage alone would have been sufficient without the phone data. The cameras provided visual confirmation, but it was the digital trail, the phones, the financial records, the documented schedules that built the legal case. One defense expert testified that the video quality was too poor for certain identifications, though prosecutors countered with gait analysis and clothing matches that were harder to dispute. For the facility workers who unknowingly worked alongside the thieves, the revelation was deeply unsettling. Several employees testified about feeling betrayed, describing how they'd shared break rooms and shift schedules with people who were systematically robbing their employers. Some faced suspicion themselves during the investigation, enduring weeks of interviews before being cleared. The economic impact extended beyond the direct losses. Insurance premiums for secure storage facilities across Europe increased by an average of 22% in 2020. Smaller logistics companies struggled to absorb these costs. 3 firms connected to the thefts filed for bankruptcy, resulting in over 140 job losses. For the communities where the defendants lived, the arrests brought shame and scrutiny. Families of the convicted spoke to media about the stigma, the legal costs, and the challenge of rebuilding lives after the trials. This wasn't a victimless crime. The ripple effects touched dozens of households across multiple countries.
Dr. Elena Morrison, a criminologist specializing in organized theft, explains it this way: modern criminals aren't always breaking down doors. They're studying systems, finding the gaps between technology and human attention. The case revealed a critical vulnerability. Many facilities had invested in cameras, but not in monitoring or maintenance. It's like having a lock on your door, but never checking if it's actually latched. The legal implications were significant. The case led to new European Union guidelines on cross-border data sharing for property crimes. Before 2020, surveillance footage from one country wasn't routinely shared with investigators in another unless a formal treaty request was filed. That process could take months. Now, Europol maintains a centralized database where member states can upload and search CCTV evidence in real time. From a technology perspective, the case became a teaching moment. Security conferences now use it as an example of legacy system risk. Organizations assume that because they have cameras, they're protected. But if no one's watching the feed, if the cameras aren't networked, if maintenance is deferred, then surveillance becomes security theater. It looks protective, but provides no real defense. Here's what we know for certain. A criminal network operated for nearly 4 years, exploiting gaps in surveillance monitoring across multiple countries. We know 17 people were convicted, using their legitimate access to steal over $18 million in goods. We know outdated CCTV systems recorded their crimes, but those recordings sat unwatched until one detective looked at the footage everyone else had ignored. What we don't know is how many other similar operations might still be active, relying on the same assumption that old cameras are blind cameras. Now comes the question that law enforcement is still working to answer. The cameras were always watching. The question was whether anyone was watching them. This case reminds us that security isn't just about having the tools, but about using them wisely, maintaining them consistently, and never assuming that old technology is ineffective technology. Sometimes the most important evidence is hiding in the least obvious place. If you want to understand how modern investigators are using technology to solve crimes that seem impossible, watch our next video, The Metadata Murder Case: How a Photo's Hidden Data Caught a Killer. It's another story where the smallest digital detail made the biggest difference. Source notes and disclaimer. This documentary is based on publicly available court documents, law enforcement press releases, and investigative journalism from Reuters, DW News, Financial Times, and Security Today magazine, published between 2020 and 2021. Some details have been simplified for clarity. The case involved multiple ongoing investigations, and not all information has been made public. Individual names have been changed or omitted where sources provided limited public identification. This video is for educational purposes only and does not constitute legal analysis. Details are accurate as of the source's publication dates, but may not reflect subsequent appeals or case development.